Good morning. My name is Ainsley Smith, and I am graduating from Kingwood High School. Thank you. Growing up, my parents have always been a role model for me of what it looks like to be a Christian. They've always taken me to church, and I've always been able to turn to them for help in my faith, whether I need encouragement and grace, or if I need them to help set me straight when I get my priorities mixed up. When I was 6 years old, I was at my church's VBS, and they told us about what it means to start a relationship with God. I immediately knew this was something I wanted, so after talking with the pastor and my parents, I prayed and gave my life to God that night. Now, for about as long as I've been a Christian, I've also been a perfectionist. Around the time I gave my life to God, I was at a doctor's appointment, and the doctor asked me what my favorite part of school was and what my least favorite part of school was. I thought about my answer for a minute, and then I knew. My favorite part of school was taking tests, and my least favorite part of school was recess. And the doctor told my mom then and there that I would be a perfectionist. So one of the biggest ways my perfectionism has been challenged was during my 8th grade year. Right before the school year started, my house was flooded by Hurricane Harvey. Then later that year, I had unexpected deaths in my family. My life was so far from perfect, and I was too. I felt so many negative emotions, and instead of talking them out and dealing with them, I repressed them, thinking that this would make them go away. Now, if you've ever tried this strategy, you know that instead of making all your bad feelings go away, this only makes them get worse and worse until you decide to do something about it. For me, doing something meant talking to my parents about how I was feeling. And as soon as I was talking with them, they encouraged me to start writing down 3 things I was grateful for every day. Now right now that seems super easy, but at a time of so much loss in my life, it was really daunting. And even though it was hard at first, it got easier with time as I learned the power of gratitude. To this day, when I'm having a hard time, I'll make a list of everything I'm grateful for to remind myself that God is always moving, even in the midst of our pain and struggles. So, moving on from my 8th grade year, as I went into high school, I started to lean further into my faith. During my sophomore year of high school, at the height of quarantine, I was part of a Bible study FaceTime group with some girls from church, and we were doing a devotional about following God. I vividly remember one day I was reading in the devotional, and it said, "All God wants from you is a relationship." Now, I'd heard this phrase so many times, but I never really let it soak in. Instead, I remember reading passages like the fruits of the Spirit, and I would think, I love you, God, and I know you love me, so I'm going to try harder to be more graceful and patient and kind, without even realizing that all of these qualities are only possible through Him. So once I started letting this simple truth soak into my life, I started the journey that I'm still on today of letting go of my need to be perfect and focusing more on God's true perfection. So, this brings me to my senior year, which has been really fun, but also really difficult, mainly because of the college process, which has challenged my perfectionism and desire for control. From the beginning of the year, I had a list of schools I really wanted to go to, but ultimately, my dream was to end up at Vanderbilt. However, from the beginning of the year, my parents encouraged me to pray that God would put me wherever He wants me, rather than where I think I should go. This doesn't mean I didn't have my moments, though. I remember about halfway through the school year one night, and I had started to hear from a couple schools, but I was still waiting to hear back on most of my decisions. And doubt started to creep into my mind about whether or not things would work out. But in the midst of my doubt and spiraling, 3 words popped into my head. It is finished. And these 3 words come from John 19, verse 30, which says, "When Jesus had received the sour wine, He said, 'It is finished.' Then bowing His head, He gave up His spirit." Now, I already knew these words as Jesus' final words on the cross, but I never thought of them as anything more than that. I have tried to live a perfect life over and over again, and I fail every time. But Jesus did live perfectly, and yet He took on all the punishment that I deserved when He died on the cross and rose again. Though I continue to be imperfect, Jesus' death has paid the price for every sin. And for this reason, when He said, "It is finished," he was proclaiming that he has paid the penalty we all deserved. And this truth isn't just reserved for that point in time. It is true each and every day. When I was in 8th grade, dealing with storms that seemed impossible to get through, it was already finished. When I saw the Bible as a rule book of tasks I needed to do to please God, it was already finished. Even now, in the college process, everything that I've previously worried about and everything that I'm currently worried about is already finished. In each and every situation that you and I will ever go through, we can live knowing that everything we need has already been accomplished through Jesus' death and resurrection. So, about a month ago, I got my decision back from Vanderbilt, and I found out I was rejected. But from the moment I saw my rejection letter, I have had peace that could not have come from anywhere but God. Because of my parents praying with me all year for God's plan over mine, I'm so confident and excited to announce that I will be attending UT Austin in the fall. Thank you. So, throughout my life, I have had such a fixed idea of what I thought my life should look like and who I should be, but as my plan has failed, God's will has prevailed. And for this reason, as I head into this next chapter of my life, I am learning to trust God above everything else. And I encourage you to try this too. Thank you.